Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. So there I was. Mind was racing. Hands were shaking. And all sorts of things were going through the mind of myself, wondering if I should go through with it or not go through it. Now, for those of you tuning in before I continue this story and how this great podcast of Think and Grow Rich Part 2 continues, please share. Please drop a review. How I personally know if someone really loves me, they're always sending me stuff. It's a good indication of where our friendship is at, since today's day and age is full of reels, videos, pictures that capture our attentions. Now, I always know and love to send a lot of things. That's why I receive a lot of reels on Instagram, a lot of messages, a lot of great things. And it's a reconfirmation to myself that those of you out there care for me. So how and what I was describing is very simple. It was in regards to the last podcast that I uploaded. And when I say my mind was racing and my hands were shaking, it was, do I upload this or do I not upload this? And I believe it ties in greatly with today's episode. So I have, again, Think and Grow Rich. For those of you who watch, this is going to be uploaded to YouTube. The very first one is uploaded to YouTube. For those that I do record, I will continue to work on uploading them to YouTube. So with that, a few of the things that I really prefer to go into today are the 6 basic fears that Napoleon Hill talks about. And one of them is a fear of poverty. The other is fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, and the fear and loss of someone. Now, I understand that those are only 4, yet I do believe these are the 4 main ones that he talks about. And as I flip the page, fear of old age is one, and the fear of death is the 6th one. And the main one that I want to speak about to you today is mainly the fear of criticism. So as my mind was racing and my hands were shaking, wondering if I should upload this or not upload this last podcast, Sunday service, I told you so, or I told you so Sunday service, one of the two, as I am trying to recall, I guess, in my mind, either way is the fear of criticism. And why I do believe the fear of criticism is so big is because in today's day and age, there's a lot of it. Especially when it comes to uploading things online or starting that business that you want or asking that girl out on a date that you like or guy that you prefer if you're a woman. Now, why is the fear of criticism so big? Well, it's always in perspective of what are they going to think of me, when in reality, they don't normally really give a shit. They would rather just think their own thoughts, do their own thing, focus on what they are focusing on, yet it does come into mind. And with that, I would like to ask you, where in your life are you experiencing these types of fears? Now, with the fear of criticism, I do believe we can debunk it today. And why is that? Is because, anyone that is going to sit there and criticize you, as we go back to the map and levels of consciousness, are simply at a lower level in terms of consciousness than you. Now, you can surely be in a low state of consciousness and make a lot of money, have great relationships, whatever it may be, yet these things inside, these feelings more so than anything, do come up and they do arise and they do come out, especially when you focus on some of the things that, again, Napoleon Hill talks about in this book. And a lot of them, I do believe, are stored in the subconscious mind of you and I. And when it comes to criticism, I know I spoke about this a while back in a sense, yet it does continuously rise because I do believe as you evolve, as you expand, you will always continue to hit what Bob Proctor calls it as the terror barrier. When you get a great idea, you get going at that great idea, and then you hit a wall. And slowly that idea fizzles and it dissipates. Why? Because you hit a terror or a fear, some sort of barrier, which do come into what, again, Napoleon Hill talks about with the 6 most common fears of humanity. And if we go back to, those that actually do criticize you versus the thoughts that you just think of what these people are thinking about you, if that makes sense, when in reality, they're probably not thinking about you at all. Yet sometimes criticism does arise and they do say things to you and they do make comments and things along those lines. Again, they're just in a lower state of consciousness, which is fine. And if this is triggering you, it's good. And if you criticize, it's good, because that's pointing out some of these unconscious beliefs inside your mind. Now, why listen to me, right? Maybe some criticism that comes up in your mind. Well, you don't have to continuously listen. Now, with that being said, as you criticize, start to ask yourself, when and where did I first decide to criticize? And along top of that, when you get the answer, what can you simply learn from it? And the biggest thing that I learned is, when I resolve a lot of these unconscious beliefs, is you have to fill it with something more prosperous. And when I say that is, there's always an image, especially if the mind thinks in images, because if you were to be asked, and I am going to ask you, what does your refrigerator look like? Is it black, silver, gold? Now, you probably have an image in your mind, and with that image pull up, now, which way do the doors open? Do they open from the right to left or to the left to right? Again, as the mind thinks in images, you can also think of your car, your vehicle, whether you have a car or don't have a car. You can think of it. What color is it? Is it red, blue, green, gray, gold, black, silver, maroon? What model is that car? Tesla, Ford, Chevy, Toyota? And with that being said, you, again, more than likely have an image that pops up in your mind right now. And when you understand and ask yourself, when did you decide these things? Where are they coming from? What can you learn from these fears of criticism? Normally, they are feelings that have been suppressed or repressed or avoided. You can now replace that image or feeling with something more prosperous. So with that, when you begin to think of the things that you want, get a very clear image, understand what it sounds like, what it feels like, what it looks like, maybe what it even tastes like, what it smells like. Again, if you were to upgrade your car, maybe it smells like new leather, or that brand new car smell that maybe you can recall when jumping in a brand new car. And with this all being said, these are some of the things that were going through the mind of myself right before uploading the podcast. And it took me, I do believe, right around a month, because it was recorded before Easter and posted after Easter. And some of the things that are very crucial is to get really in alignment with what the unconscious mind is. And why that is because when you can understand the unconscious, you can begin to remove those weeds. If we go back to the garden analogy that I have spoken about in the past, and if you do understand, you can go and re-listen to that. I also have a reel on IG with it where you can follow me. I am Justin Kopet. I am Justin Kopet on X as well. Connect with me there. It would be a real pleasure. So, back to it. Autosuggestion. It's where one, from my understanding with this, that can help you right now, is to be able to use the unconscious to your advantage. because it's always working. Your RAS, reticular activating system, is essentially what it stands for. And what that does and how it works, it's very similar. I hear and see this all the time with people who understand neuroscience, and I myself am beginning to understand more neuroscience. It's, for example, if we continue to talk about cars, when you buy a brand new car, and since you bought a brand new car, you drive it around from place to place. As you go, you continuously pick up and see that car where others are also driving that same exact model, year, style, etc. Because the mind picks up on that. And when using auto-suggestion, especially if it is in regards to your goal, you can use that to your advantage. Now, that is why it is very important to write your goals down, to where then, since the RAS, the unconscious mind, operates at about 11 million bits per second, it's always working. When you're sleeping, when you're awake, when you're walking, standing, running, working out, it's always at play. To where when you understand that the fear of criticism comes from the things that are in your environment, a lot of the times I do believe it can be from the music, because if you listen to modern day rap, it's garbage. It's horrible. They're talking about, now you are all safe and healthy, killing people, hurting people, fighting people. There's really no positivity in it. If you can agree with that, please let me know. If you find different types of rap, great. I know there's great Christian rap out there, things along those lines. If that's what you prefer, some don't, some do. Either way, be very more so aware of the things that are going in there, especially, when you're just waking up or you are just going to sleep. And if you implant those things that plant seeds of criticism, fear of poverty, fear of death, fear of some of the 6 basic fears that he speaks about in this book, you will understand. So, other than that, when you continuously use autosuggestion, it can help you and speed up the process of you getting that goal a lot faster. See, there's many opportunities. We live in America. Those of you that do live in America, those of you that do not live in America, there are all sorts of opportunities to where once you can open up and start to realize and see more so than anything that this is a land of opportunity, you can start to begin to say no to not the best opportunities that arise, because opportunities are going to continue to appear, especially when it comes to the idea of synchronicity, where things just work out and you continuously see signs and they continuously appear for you and in your reality. And with that, he also speaks about sex transmutation, where, what it is and how it works is we have a mammalian brain, which is very similar to a dog's brain. And if you think of it, what is sex? It is a animal-like experience, to where if you can, instead of indulging in that urge, which is why you see it all over in today's society, from the pictures on Instagram, from the videos in Facebook, to the TikToks of the world. It's all over pointing at indulging into that type of idea. And if you can use that and transmute it into something else, you can get ahead a lot further. And with that being said, why the ideal partner is very crucial, because they bring a sort of stimulation into the picture, especially when you have a good partner. And some of the other great stimulants are, sex transmutation, love of your partner, stimulations such as alcohol, nicotine. Weed is not a stimulant, right? And if you disagree, that's great too. Weed is some of the most toxic things that one can indulge in their brain. And if you have a problem with marijuana, I would suggest stop. Throwing it all away, getting rid of it, tossing it out, and completely removing it from your life, especially if you value the sack of meat that's between your ears. And why that is there's many studies, especially when it comes to neuroscience, on how horrible it is for one, especially with their short-term memory, long-term memory. You're literally opening up the gates to things like schizophrenia. Horrible, horrible things that are caused by this sort of thing, which is marijuana. And there's many more things that you can go into it. I was just listening to an expert on it, and I prefer to share it with you so you can understand it and go and do your own research. Now, not only that, there's all sorts of pesticides that are sprayed on this stuff. So just be very careful. I have personally, done my indulging in it. And by understanding these things and the toxic traits of it, would recommend to you to go check that out. And going back to the fear of criticism, it's one thing that many can evolve from and move forward with. Now, on top of that, the other great things that I can say I took away from it is the mastermind principle. I've already spoken about this as well, where you can get together and really create new ideas that if you were just alone and by yourself, you may have placed yourself into a box. And when getting together with multiple different perspectives on the same topic, you can think, as they say, outside of the box and expand on your awareness to new ideas that may be staring right in front of you. Okay? And also, if you were to go and read Think and Grow Rich, you would begin to realize, as myself just realized reading it for the third time, that it's very well spiritual based. There's a lot of spiritual principles in it. And with this, Napoleon Hill talks about meeting with his council. Now, this may again seem very strange, yet is very more so in the spiritual realm. It's when he meets with his council, these are people that necessarily aren't actually in a room counseling him, because it is in just a dreamlike state where right before he goes to bed, he has a boardroom where all of these individuals come in and they all have their own personality. Some of the people that he prefers to be around. And I've done this many times. I continuously do this all sorts of times right before I go to bed, because if your unconscious mind is really working at all times, and if you understand that the feeling is the secret, and if the feeling is X, whatever X is for you, for example, X can be your goal, and if you were to feel as if that X is already in completion, when sitting down in this council with these individuals, where you may have people along the lines of like Jesus Christ, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, who else? Only you can imagine some of the greats that are out there, especially when it comes to your field of study. And if you're able to sit down with these right before you go to sleep, I understand that these are other concepts that seem far-fetched, just because one may be so sucked into being in a box of society, of what they believe is true and what they do not believe is true. And if you go back to the ideas of who's to say that, the apple that is sitting on the table that you placed there, hours ago, is there or not there, based on one's belief. I do believe this principle can help you when it comes to the mastermind alliance that you say can have with your council. So some examples for me is when it comes to running ads, and I was very much so trying to understand how to figure out how to get further ahead when it comes to creating more of a community. And I sat down with my council where I bring people in and bring people out. There was one individual that I study when it comes to the ad world, and he's in Europe, great individual. We were able to be partners for a while. And in this council, he told me to do these certain things when it comes to running these ads. And so with it being in my imagination, another of these principles that he talks about is you have to be great with your imagination. Why? Because imagination allows these new ideas to spark. And if you can have these new ideas spark, you can create awesome, significant things. And before you knew it, I was able to physically wake up consciously after having this meeting with my imaginary counsel, which may not actually be imaginary, or it might. It's up for you to decide. That's why I would recommend that you go out and test this theory. I was able to apply these things that appear in my imagination from my council meeting. And lo and behold, it has netted lots and lots of new clients, lots and lots of great case studies, lots and lots of revenue, if that's what you're after. So give this a thought, give this an attempt, and please let me know what your thoughts are. Just because if we're going to wrap this all up, whether I post this on IG or do not post this on IG comes down to the fear of criticism of what are you going to think when it comes to it. And quite frankly, quite truly, anyone who is truly ahead of you is not thinking about that, nor do they really care. And more so than anything, they're going to support you. So what I want to recommend for you is to send that text, call that person, upload those reels and those YouTube videos that you've been pondering on, and start that business. Just because if you need permission, I'm here to share that with you. So other than that, we're just going to wrap it up there. Just kind of wanted to wrap up the Think and Grow Rich in between the last podcast that I just dropped. Go check that out if you have not heard it. More so in the spiritual realm, very much so in the spiritual realm. And let me know what other topics you prefer. Like I said, if you get value out of this, share it with your loved ones. That's how I know when I'm receiving those types of videos and podcasts, and I'm always receiving these things at pretty much every moment of the day. Really, I know that those individuals love me, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for tuning in, watching this, listening to this, sharing this, subscribing, and we will see you on the next one. Peace, my friends.